There comes a moment in every believer's journey when God seems to step back. The laughter of familiar faces begins to fade, conversations grow quieter, and suddenly the people who once stood beside you begin to drift away. It feels like an invisible hand is pulling pieces of your world apart, one connection at a time. You pray for clarity, but heaven stays silent. You ask for comfort, but find only emptiness. And in that emptiness, your heart begins to whisper the question every soul has once asked: God, why are you taking them away? It's in that stillness that God begins his hidden work. Separation isn't punishment, it's preparation. The breaking you feel isn't cruelty, it's construction. Before God elevates a person, he isolates them. Before he reveals the next chapter, he often closes the last one in silence. What feels like loss is often the trimming of dead weight you didn't realize you were carrying. The ones who leave, the doors that close, and the sudden distance from comfort, they are not signs that you've been forgotten. They're signs that you're being refined. When God removes someone from your life, it's rarely because they were bad. It's because they've completed their role in your story. Their absence, though painful, becomes the very space where God fills you with new strength, deeper faith, and unshakable trust. In that separation, he teaches you that your stability was never meant to rest on people, but on him alone. So if you've been feeling the ache of divine distance, don't despair. This isn't the end of your story, it's the sacred transition before growth. Stay still, stay surrendered, and allow God to finish what he's quietly started. Because what he's removing today, he's using to rebuild you tomorrow. If this message speaks to your season of separation, stay with us till the end, and don't forget to subscribe for more faith-filled reflections that strengthen your journey. Sign 1. God is quiet, yet present. There are seasons when heaven feels silent. You kneel to pray, but the words feel heavy. You open scripture, yet every page seems quiet. It's as if God has withdrawn his voice and left you standing in the stillness. But what feels like distance is often divine design. God's silence isn't absence, it's strategy. When he quiets the noise, it's because he's teaching you to recognize his whisper. Sometimes, we grow so used to his movement that we forget how to rest in his mystery. In the noise of blessings and breakthroughs, our hearts can forget how to simply listen. So, God allows silence, not to punish you but to sharpen your spirit. It's in that quiet place where faith matures. When you can't trace his hand, you learn to trust his heart. The silence of God isn't a sign that he's gone. It's proof that he's near in a different way. Like a teacher who stops speaking during a test, he steps back not because he's abandoned you, but because he's watching to see what you've learned. That silence becomes sacred training ground. The moment when you shift from needing constant reassurance to walking in quiet confidence. In solitude, God strengthens your roots. He shows you that his presence is not always loud, not always visible, but always real. And one day, when the silence breaks and his voice returns, you'll realize the quiet was never empty, it was full of unseen preparation. If this silence feels familiar, you're not alone. Hit subscribe, because your quiet season carries divine meaning. Sign 2. Old relationships start fading. There comes a time when the faces that once surrounded you start to disappear. The calls grow fewer, the conversations shorter, and the connection that once felt effortless begins to fade. At first you wonder what went wrong. You replay every moment, searching for mistakes or misunderstandings. But slowly you begin to realize, this isn't rejection, it's redirection. God is shifting your circle because he's shifting your calling. Not everyone can travel with you to the next level of your destiny. Some people were placed in your life for a purpose but not for permanence. When God begins to elevate you, he also begins to separate you. Not because others are bad, but because their part in your story has been fulfilled. You can't move into what's next while holding on to what's done. It's painful, yes. The pruning always is. But pruning is proof of growth. A gardener cuts not to kill the plant, but to help it bear more fruit. In the same way, when God removes certain relationships, he's not taking something from you, he's making room for something greater. The space left behind by those who walked away becomes the soil where your spiritual maturity takes root. So, when people start fading from your life without clear explanation, resist the urge to chase what God has released. Trust his pruning hands even when they hurt. Because every departure under his direction carries a hidden blessing, a divine exchange between what was and what will be. If this resonates, type "I understand" in the comments, and subscribe for more messages like this one. Sign 3. Your desires begin to change. There comes a moment in your walk with God when the things that once excited you suddenly lose their pull. What used to satisfy your heart now feels strangely empty. The conversations, the habits, even the goals that once drove you, they begin to lose color. It's not that life has gone dull, it's that your spirit has started to awaken. God is quietly shifting your appetite from comfort to calling. When He starts changing your desires, it's a sign that He's preparing you for more. You begin to crave depth over distraction, meaning over moments, and purpose over pleasure. The things that once entertained you no longer hold weight because your heart is being redefined by eternity. This is how God separates you, not through isolation alone but by transforming what you long for. It can feel confusing at first. You may wonder why the old joys don't feel the same, why familiar places no longer fit, or why you're drawn to things that don't make sense to others. But this is the sacred tension of spiritual growth. You're outgrowing what no longer aligns with your divine assignment. God is removing the taste for temporary satisfaction so He can fill you with eternal purpose. When your desires change, it's proof that heaven is working within you. Don't fight the transformation, embrace it. Because the more He refines what you want, the more He reveals who you truly are. This isn't the loss of desire, it's the birth of destiny. If you've noticed your desires changing lately, it's a sign of transformation. Subscribe to stay encouraged on your journey. Sign 4. Doors begin closing unexpectedly. There are moments in life when everything seems to stop working at once. Opportunities you prayed for vanish, relationships you depended on collapse, and the plans you built with care suddenly fall apart. Feels unfair, even cruel. But when doors start closing without reason, it's often because God has seen something you haven't. His no isn't rejection, it's redirection. Sometimes, the doors you keep knocking on are the very ones that would destroy you if they opened. God, in His mercy, blocks access not to limit you but to lead you. He closes paths that appear good to protect you from what's not right. What feels like the end of a season is often the start of divine rerouting. A shift that places you exactly where His purpose needs you to be. When God says no, He's not withholding good, He's preparing greater. Every closed door carries a message: trust my timing. It's hard to see that in the moment, especially when disappointment clouds your faith. But often what looks like loss is actually love in disguise. Because if that door had opened, you might have settled for something smaller than what He had planned. So, don't panic when doors shut without warning. Don't chase what God has already closed. Instead, pause and thank Him, even through tears, for the protection you can't yet see. Because one day when the right door opens with ease and peace, you'll understand why the others had to stay locked. If doors are closing in your life, don't panic, it could be protection. Subscribe to hear more on how God redirects your path. Sign 5. You feel isolated but not abandoned. There comes a season when everything feels quieter, not just around you but within you. The friends who once checked in grow distant, the noise of life fades, and suddenly you find yourself standing alone. It's a strange kind of emptiness that feels both painful and peaceful at the same time. In that silence you may wonder, God, why did you pull everyone away? But what looks like isolation is often God's way of drawing you closer to Him. When God isolates you, He's not punishing you, He's refocusing you. He removes the distractions, the voices, and the attachments that compete for your attention so that His voice can finally be heard. Isolation isn't evidence of abandonment, it's the workshop of transformation. It's where He teaches you dependence, not on people, not on plans, but on His presence alone. It's in the quiet spaces of solitude that strength is born. When no one else is there to applaud you or rescue you, you begin to discover that God is more than enough. The isolation you fear becomes the classroom of faith, where you learn to walk by trust, not by sight. What once felt like a cage begins to look like a cocoon, a place of becoming. So, if you're in that season where you feel unseen or forgotten, remember this: God hides His greatest work until it's ready to shine. He hasn't left you, He's preparing you. Stay faithful in the quiet, because what He's building in secret will soon be revealed in strength. Isolation is not punishment, it's preparation. Hit subscribe if you're in that season right now. Sign 6. He challenges your comfort. There comes a point in your journey with God when everything that once felt simple starts to stretch you. The routines that once gave you peace begin to feel uneasy. The paths that used to flow smoothly now come with resistance. It's not that life has turned against you, it's that God is stirring something within you. When He's ready to grow your faith, He shakes your comfort. God never allows you to stay in a place that keeps you small. He disturbs your ease not to break you but to build you. The discomfort you're feeling is the evidence of divine stretching, the process where faith muscles grow stronger. When you're pushed beyond your limits, that's where endurance is born. You begin to see that faith isn't developed in comfort zones. It's forged in moments of challenge where all you have left is trust. Think of every great person in Scripture. Abraham leaving his homeland, Moses facing Pharaoh, David standing before Goliath. None of them grew in comfort, all of them were stretched beyond what they thought they could bear. God uses discomfort to remind us that purpose is costly, and calling always comes with pressure. So when life starts feeling uneasy, don't rush to escape it. The pressure you feel today is proof that you're being prepared for tomorrow. God is not punishing you, He's promoting you through pain. Every season of stretching is a silent declaration from heaven. You're ready for more. If God's stretching you right now, remember, growth never happens in comfort. Subscribe for weekly faith reminders. Sign 7. He removes what distracts you. There are seasons when God begins to quietly strip away the things that once filled your time and captured your heart. The habits that once thrilled you no longer hold meaning. The hobbies that once gave comfort start to feel empty. Even routines that seemed harmless suddenly lose their place in your life. It's not coincidence, it's divine decluttering. God is removing distractions to restore your focus. We often pray for clarity, but clarity requires space. And sometimes, the only way God can give you space is by taking things away. When He starts pruning your distractions, it's because your attention has become too divided. He's calling you to higher ground, and you can't climb while carrying what was never meant to go with you. This process can feel frustrating, even lonely, because distractions often gave us a sense of comfort and identity. But what you're losing isn't life, it's noise. God isn't trying to empty your hands, He's trying to fill them with purpose. He's simplifying your surroundings so you can finally see Him clearly. When you feel things slipping from your grip, resist the urge to hold tighter. Let them go with trust, knowing that what's leaving your life is making room for what's lasting. Because when God declutters your soul, He's preparing it to carry something eternal, peace, clarity, and purpose. So if you're losing what once mattered, don't panic. You're not being deprived, you're being refined. The less you're distracted by the temporary, the more you'll be aligned with the eternal. If distractions are falling away, take heart. God is clearing your path. Subscribe and walk this journey with us. Sign 8. You begin to crave His presence. There comes a beautiful shift in your spiritual journey, a moment when the applause of people begins to fade and only one voice matters anymore. The likes, the recognition, the approval that once motivated you suddenly lose their grip. You no longer crave validation from the world. Instead, your soul hungers for something higher, the quiet, steady presence of God. This is one of the clearest signs that He's separating you to strengthen you. He replaces your need for attention with a longing for intimacy. The more He works in your heart, the more you realize that no achievement, no relationship, and no earthly comfort can compare to the peace that comes from being near Him. You stop chasing moments that feed your ego and start seeking moments that feed your spirit. Hunger for His presence is not ordinary, it's sacred evidence that your heart is awakening. When God becomes your priority, your desires begin to align with His will. You start craving prayer, quiet reflection, and time alone with Him more than anything else. And as you draw closer, He fills you with strength that no external validation can provide. This hunger changes everything. It gives clarity when the world is confusing, peace when life feels chaotic, and courage when fear tries to take hold. The more time you spend with Him, the more your spirit finds rest, even in the middle of the storm. So, if lately you've been craving His presence more than anything else, don't ignore it. That longing is a divine invitation, God calling you deeper. If you've started craving His presence more deeply, that's no accident. Subscribe to keep feeding your faith. Sign 9. You realize the separation made you stronger. One day you'll look back on the season that once broke you, and you'll barely recognize yourself. The pain that once felt unbearable will now look like purpose in disguise. You'll see how every loss shaped your strength, how every silence deepened your faith, and how every separation became the soil where your endurance grew. What once hurt you now holds meaning. This is the divine reversal only God can right. The people who left, the doors that closed, the isolation you endured, they were never meant to destroy you. They were the refining fire that made you unshakable. You thought you were being stripped, but in truth you were being strengthened. The version of you that emerges after separation is not weaker. It's wiser, grounded, and fully dependent on God. Every tear became a teacher. Every disappointment became direction. And now you can see what you couldn't before. God never took anything that He didn't plan to replace with something greater. The breaking was the blessing. The emptiness made room for divine fullness. So when you finally realize that the pain didn't end you but equipped you, that's when you'll thank God not only for what He gave, but also for what He took away. Because through every separation He was never subtracting, He was strengthening. If you've come out stronger from your separation, share your story in the comments. and don't forget to subscribe for the next powerful message. The strength of separation. Separation is never the end, it's the beginning of God's crafting. When He pulls something or someone away, it's not to leave you empty but to shape you for what's next. What looks like loss from your eyes often looks like preparation from His. In the silence, He's sharpening your spirit. In the waiting, He's building your wisdom. And in the breaking, He's molding your heart to carry greater purpose. Every closed door is a divine classroom. Every goodbye is grace in disguise. You may not see it now, but every piece of your pain is being used to form the masterpiece of your calling. You're not being punished, you're being positioned. What you lost didn't define you, it refined you. So hold on, because the same God who allowed the separation is the one preparing the restoration. And when it comes, you'll understand why everything had to happen exactly the way it did. Before you leave, take a second to subscribe, because your next breakthrough could be hidden in the next message. Stay faithful, stay strong, and stay close to God.